Today we're supposed to be doing Kuf Chaf Gimel Halacha Yud Daled. And I'm sure you paid attention that we didn't do Yud Beis Yud Gimel. Yud Beis is going to sort of slip in someplace in today's year. It's going to sort of fit in, you'll see. I'm not going to read that in. It's a very unusual case that would, to me, is not negate to Halacha Maisa. And Halacha Yud Gimel, we actually spoke about, you probably remember, before Pesach 3 years ago. Halacha Yud Gimel is a shayla about a thing called Reitz V'Kiyumai. It has to do with whether, again to us, was whether Pesach hotels allowed to buy pizza before Pesach and save it for after Pesach. And certain questions like that. This whole to do about what's called Reitz V'Kiyumai, which actually comes under the din that's right here in Halacha Yud Gimel. So I'm not going to tell you what it said there, because we spoke about it already, and I'm sure you will remember. Okay, we'll do Halacha Yud Daled. Not yet. Halacha Yud Daled. Hachatzanim v'hazogim shalom dikham. The chatzanim zogim. We've been talking about all these different things that you make from the leftovers from making wine. So chatzanim and zogim, the peels and the pits of non-kosher wine. V'chein shimmer yain shalahem, and also the shmarim, that the leftovers after you take the wine out of the barrel, what's left over. You're not allowed to use them because there are some other wine. So you're not allowed to use them during 12 months. Once they've dried out, however, remember in the early halachas we had this thing called tamid, which is they would pour water over the shmarim and the chatzanim in order to make some beverage out of it. We spoke about it then. So you have to have washed them all first to get rid of the end, plus 12 months. No matter what, they're usher anyhow. Now that whole din about whether you have to rinse it off and when you have to rinse it off, we're going to wait for halacha tezayin. We're going to say an exception to that rule, which is a halacha l'maisa, a very halacha l'maisa case, and halacha tezayin. So we're going to wait for that. Okay, but it said here that these things are usher. The chatzanim and zagim and shmarim are usher themselves, unless you wait 12 months and you rinse them off. Okay, so the Ramah says that's only true if the chatzanim came from yain nesach. What does that mean? But if you got the chatzanim out before you did hamshacha, okay, now hamshacha is going to be halacha yud zayin. We've talked about it a bunch of times that when you squeeze grapes, what you squeeze is not wine, and a guy could touch it. There's nothing. It doesn't have any din of wine. But it only becomes wine when you do hamshacha. When you separate liquid from solid, that's when it has a din of wine. Okay, so we're going to talk about. We get to halacha yud zayin. I've been working on a popsicle stick project for you to show you what it means. I've been working on it with all the motors on my block. A project. You'll see. Wait till we get there. No. I've been working on it. My summer fun. But if you got the seeds out before you did hamshacha, if you realize it, so that means you squeeze the grape, so you have grape juice mixed with all the junk mixed into it. It's not wine yet. So if you took the chatzanim out before you did hamshacha, then to Moshe Yispayer, like it's going to be explaining halacha yud zayin, then they're not usher because it was wine. What? Is there a chiddush in that? Is there a chiddush? Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk about it. Those people who crush the grapes in a barrel, point being is that there's no hamshacha. You crush them in a barrel. There's no way for the liquid separate from the solid because it's all in one big barrel. As much as you crush, they're going to stay mixed together. Even though the liquid floats to the top, that's not considered hamshacha, and then mutarim because there was no hamshacha. Okay? So we have here this din here that the seeds are usher, except under specific situations. You got to before hamshacha, or you rinse them and dry them. Basically, the seeds and all these other pieces are usher. Okay? So, in past bunch of years, people have come up with three things that I'm going to talk about at the beginning, and then one at the end. The other thing at the end is not so new, but the three things that are sort of new are things that can be made out of grape seeds. Okay, so I told you the title is going to be Grapeseed Extract. One of them is called Grapeseed Extract. I'll tell you what that is in a second. And the other two are, I can't even pronounce it. It's called Enocianina. Everyone just calls it Eno. Okay, and another thing called Grape-color Extract. Okay, what are those three things? Grape-color Extract. Grape-color Extract.
Grapeseed oil.
What?
Grapeseed oil.
That's going to be at the end. I'm going to talk about that. That's at the end. I'm going to talk about that. You missed that. We did that already. Okay, so grapeseed extract is that they found that people who drink wine in moderation people who drink red wine have all kinds of health benefits. They live long, I don't know, whether their hair grows long, I don't know. So they have all kinds of health benefits to drinking red wine. So they said, Makkah told them that drinking red wine is good for you and not drinking white wine. What could it be? So they figured, they know, because the way you make red wine, as opposed to white wine, is that you let the peels and the pits sit in the juice, and the color leaches out of them. So there must be something in those pits or the peels that's the thing that makes you healthy. So they decided it's that chemical. They point out a specific one. So they extract that from the seeds. They say, so what do we have to drink wine for? I can just make it into a little pill. I'll get all the stuff, the good stuff, and I'll put it into a pill and you'll eat that. So they made something called grapeseed extract. So they take seeds from white wine, meaning seeds that have not given over their whatever this great thing is into the liquid.
The seed gets the color too. The red wine.
Yeah,
not
seed,
the shell.
Seed and the peel give it the color. So let's get the good thing out of it. Let's get the good part out of the seed, and then we'll put it into a little pill, and you have it like that, and you don't have to drink wine. Okay. So that's called grapeseed extract. It's a health type product, a purported health product. The other two, Eno and Grape-color extract, those are colors that are taken out of these things. Okay, there's an official legal definition, but they're very similar to each other. They're colors that are taken out of grape seeds. And so the question is whether you can get those from seeds made from trafe grapes. Sorry, seeds made from trafe wine. Okay, you go to a wine production. There's zillions of seeds left over. Can you take those seeds and use them to make these things? Okay. So this question came up, I don't know first, but it came up about 20 years ago, and the OU's poskim said, no problem. You can make the grapeseed extract out of the seeds from trafe wine. And I said, very simple reason why. They said, look, a piece of wood is not usher. The only thing that's usher is wine. Seeds are not wine. Seeds are just wood. So we just had a din that seeds are wine, that seeds are usher, and we have all these din about seeds being usher. Well, that's because what could it be? How could it be usher? What could a seed? Seed is not wine. How can a seed be usher? So it must be that the reason why it's usher is because the seeds were used in making a wine where the seed was kovush inside the liquid. And since it was kovush, it absorbed tam from the wine. So it's not usher itself. It can't be usher. It's not just a piece of wood. It's just a piece of fruit. It can't be usher. It must be that it was usher through kovush. Well, the grapeseed extract is, of course, made from things that are not kovush. That's the whole point, is you get them out right away, and you preserve that magic chemical that's in the grapeseed. You preserve that, and you get it out. So as long as it comes from white wine, which it always will, for people who are making white wine, you're good, because it'll never be kovush. Okay?
How would it always be for white wine?
Because again, the chachma here is the red wine already had this stuff leached into it, and therefore you can't get it out of the seed anymore. It's gone. It's in the red wine.
It's there.
It went out. So if you want to get it from people to get the stuff out of it, you have to get it from people who are making white wine. So the people who make grape extract, that's what they do. They buy seeds from people making white wine. So if you can do those seeds, so the seeds will always be kosher, will be good, because the seeds, it's just a piece of wood, it's just a piece of tree, and since it's a piece of a fruit, there's nothing wrong about it. It didn't have kovush. These did not have kovush, so you would be good. Okay? That's what they said. Now, a number of people were not so happy with that psak, and a couple of years later, it made its way. It made a few stops, but it made its way. A few people agreed with you also, but it made its way to Rav Miller. Rav Miller told them that they're all wrong. Okay, he said, "You guys, you're all wrong." Okay, and he wrote a whole bunch of rayas that it's not true. Okay, and before I'll tell you, I'll skip to the end before I tell you what he said. The OU's poskim, he wrote them a letter. He wrote them a letter explaining why he thought they were wrong, and they bought it. They accepted it. He's right. And they therefore changed it that you could only make the grapeseed extract out of seeds either came from kosher wine. That's fine. You could do it from there, or you could follow this whole process that the Mechaber said. You could tin them, and then you could dry them off. There's a process the Mechaber said how you could take seeds from trafe wine and make them kosher. The Mechaber just told them what you have to do that. So you could do it then also. That's fine. Or you get from kosher.
And then the tepid is kosher, not the grapes.
No. No. Timda means that you were timda to clean them off and get everything away from them. Now you just left with the seed and you dry it out. Then you can then you can use the seed, or you can make something out of the seed. So that's what you can do. One of those things. Yes.
You take out the seeds before the shop.
So, or you could take out. Yeah, but once you say something like that, Once it's something like that, now that means is we now have to have a person at the winemaking. So that's what they're trying to avoid. Of course, that's like saying you get it from kosher wine. We can go to a kosher wine company and take this and do something.
Because it's just a very simple step.
Okay, but
Working the wine.
no, you have to make sure there's no hamshacha. You have the same hashkacha as you would in a kosher wine place. Okay, so it's true. There are ways to do it, but essentially they had originally said you could take it from Trafe Wine Factory, which made it very easy to make grapeseed extract. You just get any seeds, it only came from white wine, and then they switched it to, no, you can't. Okay. So what Shlomo had, if I am counting correctly, 5 riots. I'm going to tell you 3 of them. Okay? And the first riot, he said it's like Pasha that it's not true, and they accepted it. The first one comes from our din. That's what I'm telling you now. The first one comes from our Ramah. The Ramah said, this that the Mechaber said you now use seeds from the grapes of Trafe wine, he says, that's talking about if the seeds were there after Hamshacha. He says, but what happens if you got the seeds out before Hamshacha? Then the seeds are kosher. Like you were just mentioning. If you get the seeds out before Hamshacha, it's kosher. Well, what's the implication? If you didn't get the seeds out before Hamshacha, then as soon as Hamshacha happens, the seeds are asur. He didn't say, it's mutter if you get it out within 24 hours. He said, if you get it out before Hamshacha, then you're good. If you don't get it before Hamshacha, then it's no good. Even though it just happened for a second. As soon as the Hamshacha happens, then the seeds are asur. It's only if you get it out before the Hamshacha, then it's okay. So he said, in other words, the seeds are asur even from the very beginning. As soon as you make Hamshacha, the whole thing is asur.
They said that's only by 24 hours.
No, but the Ramah didn't say that.
Saying it's smart because it's the asur.
No, but the Ramah doesn't say. The Ramah says it's only asur if there was a Hamshacha. If there was no Hamshacha, then you're good.
That's bullshit. That's 24 hours.
No, that's not.
So they missed Shkora?
So Shlomo brought a right. They accepted the right. We can talk about that.
When you start Hamshacha, all the wine is up.
Yes. That's what they see.
It dribbles out.
Yeah, correct. The whole Hamshacha doesn't have, it's not ounce by ounce. Once there is Hamshacha, everything is also. You're going to wait till my popsicle sticks. You'll see. Once there's you don't like you'll see my popsicle sticks.
No, I'm very excited about it. I think they're making a cake for Shemar. It's very logical.
No, I think it's the other way around. Okay, wait.
It's not Pasha to the
They think we're very logical.
Why did that was that?
The Mechaber said seeds are asur. The Rambam says, except if you get it out before Hamshacha. Except if you get it before Hamshacha, then you're good. Otherwise, it's no good. Okay. Second raya is, you're saying that this has to do, the reason is because it's going to be asur because of Kovush. All the dinim of Chatzana was
white taka.
I'm going to come to it in a second. I'll give you in a second. Just pause. You're going to tell me all the reasons things are because of Kovush. Shlomo says, really? Well, it's a Mishnah that says that Chatzanim are asur. Okay, this din that Chatzanim are asur, the whole idea that they're asur is a Mishnah. And Rabbi Yochanan, who's an Amar, doesn't hold of Kovush. So what's he going to say? How is he going to understand the Mishnah that says that Chatzanim are asur? How could they ever be asur? If you don't hold of Kovush, how could they ever be asur? Okay? And his third raya is going to help, he says, is going to help us understand why it should be. So why isn't it correct that it's a piece of wood? Well, mine says it's just a fruit. Okay, if you eat an apple, it's not asur. So what's asur about these great pits? So the Shulti Yivarim in Avodah Zarah says that the reason why the Chatzanim and Zagim are asur is because shehem min hapri atzmai. Okay, so some had 2 ways to explain what that means. Okay, either shehem min hapri atzmai means is that since the part of the fruit, the takanat wine, but since the part of the fruit, when Chazal assured wine, they assured all the parts of the wine. Okay, they said not just the liquid part of it, but everything connected to that wine, all those things that are wine are considered also. Shehem min hapri atzmai means is the Chazal assured everything in the fruit. Midrabanan, well, Midrash is interesting. Midrash is the only thing you have to pour from Avodah Zarah. You have to pour from Avodah Zarah. You pour apple juice from Avodah Zarah. It's also asur. There's nothing special about wine.
The seeds in that wine.
So if you pour a liquid, okay, let's say you pour Lego in front of Avodah Zarah, it would also be asur. It doesn't have to be wine. So if you pour,
that's true. I mean, the meat something.
okay, so we put Lego. Okay, we pour apple juice. Okay, so if you pour liquid with seeds in it, of course it is, because you pour it in front of Avodah Zarah. So no, here's Stam Yayin. Here the asur is Stam Yayin. Because for the Issa Torah, it doesn't have to be wine. It's anything gets poured. So if this got poured, it got poured. It doesn't.
It has to be a liquid.
Okay, I don't know about that. Okay, his other pshat was that there's a certain amount of wine left behind in the seed, as we saw in the dinner before in the Temed, that there's something you can get wine out of there. Even if you just have seeds left, you can make a wine type beverage out of it. means there's something in the seed that's wine-like. So just like the thing's going to be that if you touch one part of the wine, the whole wine becomes usher. So also there's like the wine that's in there is usher. It's not the fruit. It's not the seed per se that's usher, but the seed includes within it pieces of wine, and therefore that's what's becoming usher. Okay, it's the, so to speak, wine in the seed that's usher, not the seed per se. Okay. So it doesn't have to come Kovush. It's in there already. It's in there already, like in the dinim of 10, but it's already in there. So once it's in there already, it's included, and when you touch the wine, the whole thing becomes usher. Now, so that means to say is, the idea, where the original psak had come from was that this is just a piece of wood. It's not true. Okay? This thing is actually usher itself. Okay? And this angle of the shiloh came to us a few years ago. They had a company who applied they were making grape seed flour. Okay, I don't know what you do with that, but basically grind up grape seeds. Okay, you grind up grape seeds. Okay, so grinding up grape seeds is an example of the amount of the Mechaber said how chatan v'azog v'shad are usher if you want to eat them yourself. I don't know why anybody would encourage them to try to eat that, but that's what these people were making. We told them they could do it. Okay, they wouldn't let them do it. Okay, so this is a first try to say that the grape seed extract should be mutter even from trade wine. This idea that maybe you need Kovush, and in the end the answer was no, it's not true. That's one. Two other ideas were brought up to say why it should be mutter, even if it comes from trade wine. Second was this. We're going to see what we've mentioned. It's already come up today that once you do hamshacha, if you touch one part of the wine, the whole wine becomes usher. It like, so to speak, spreads. Okay? There's even those who talk about it like nitzuk. It spreads from one part to the other, and when you touch one part, the whole thing becomes usher. Well, there's a sefer called Zichron Yosef. Okay, I also never heard of it. From someone who said. Someone in the 1700s, Yosef Steinhardt, from 1700. I also never heard of it. And probably those people either, except that the Pistachuva brings a lot of parts of it. The Pistachuva here brings out a number of things, not this part, I don't think, but a number of things out here in the Pistachuva. So the Sefer Zichron Yosef says that's only true that it spreads in the wine part of it, but it doesn't spread to the seeds. But when touching it only spreads to the wine, it doesn't affect the seed part of it. So if you take that at face value, that doesn't affect the Ramah. No, because when the Ramah said seeds are usher, is because the guy touched the seeds also. Okay, but if he just touched potentially if he touched the seeds also, if he just touched the wine, it doesn't spread to the seeds. Okay, so wait a second. So that's what, at face value, that's what it says. But that's not what it means. Okay, that's not what he means. He says, of course, if he touches the wine, it spreads to the seeds, and all these dinim over here all sound like that it becomes usher, so like part of everything else, it has a regular dinim of everything else. That's not what he means. The case that he was talking about was the case that this Sefer Zichron Yosef was talking about was Yidden made wine. They made plain kosher wine. Okay? And everything was made perfectly the way it was supposed to be. Then they took the seeds again afterwards. They made a second, trying to get more juice out of the seeds a second time. And the second time that they did it, there was a shiloh about what happened to the seeds. Okay? The shiloh was on the second version around. So Shechta says, well, the second time around, there's obviously much less wine absorbed here also. That has to do with halacha and yud beis. At a certain point, we say, is there's so little left, if a guy touches it, it's going to be bottle. Okay? And that's why he was being made because of bittul. Well, the case that the Sefer is talking about was like that, and there's mashmois within the Sefer, I didn't put it on the screen, but there's mashmois within the Sefer that's what he means. And he's only being made because it's bottle, and it has to do with halacha yud beis that we didn't sign. Okay? I have to just tell you, that's what Shechta said, and Shechta said he did not therefore think that was a riot. You have to tell you, the other part of the tshuva, the part that's a shorter version, says that the reason why it doesn't go to the seeds is because okay? That doesn't sound like it's only on the second time around. Sounds well, you can't pour seeds, right? That's like he was telling you, you can't pour seeds. Okay, but the other parts of it that are mashma that he's only talking about it in his special case, he's only making a special case, and that which is good for like what Justin was saying, which is like all the other things about Chatanim were assuming that it just has to make with everything else. It comes all together. Okay. But that second reason, that second side, leads us to a third side, which is more solidly grounded. And that comes from Kiv Asher Padua. He wrote in a journal, I've seen the printed version, I don't know which chelik it's in. There's a Baba journal called Eitz Chaim, which he printed this in. He wrote, and so in there he has a reason why he thinks it should be. But if I understand correctly, he actually gives hashgacha to it, based on this. It's going to be, what you're going to hear is going to be similar to what the Zichron Yosef says, but it's a little more deeper than that. Okay. And he said it like this. He says, I went to the companies that make the seeds for grapeseed extract. Okay? And what I found out is that in order to make grapeseed extract, without grapeseed oil, which we're going to talk about quickly in a few minutes, without getting grapeseed oil, they have to use a very specific process to squeeze those grapes. Meaning, they have to squeeze the grapes in a special hydraulic press that works in whatever I missed all of the explanation, some special way that the seeds come out of there in a way that creates only grapeseed extract instead of extract mixed with oil. Okay, so for their purposes, in order to make the grapeseed extract, they only get grapes from companies, or at least the ones he's visited, the ones he's dealing with, buy from companies that are doing a very specific process.
Companies that are making wine.
The people making grapeseed extract buy from people who are making wine in a specific way.
Why are they doing it in a specific way?
I don't know if they're doing it for their own reasons or they're doing it because they want to sell it later to you. Whatever the reason is, but they only buy from certain people. He says, I'm not sure that everybody does it this way. The people he's dealing with, he went to see the people who they buy from, and that's what they were doing, and this was their hesper for why they do it. There's another manufacturer who doesn't know. But the people who he was dealing with, that's what they do. And he said they do it in this press, and when the seeds come out of the press, the press is really efficient, and the seeds come out with no liquid on them at all, completely dry. He said he put a napkin onto it, and it comes out completely dry. I'll explain to you the significance of that in a second. So, in the hamshacha is happening in the press. Okay, now it's obvious that in the press no one's touching it. Okay, because the press is a hydraulic press. If you put your hands in there, you don't touch anything again, ever. So he's not touching anything. So he said, so there's three reasons, he says there's three ways that the wine could become usher. And for each one of them, he has a halachic explanation for why it's not usher. Okay, here goes like this. The first is, well, the guy didn't touch the wine, but there's another way to make wine usher. You can't make wine usher. Wine doesn't only become usher by touching it, it also becomes usher through koicha. We'll see that in the later halach, chafal. We're going to see about that. Like koicha, if he moves the wine, if the wine moves because of him, then it makes it usher also. So he says, let's say it's koicha. He's not convinced, but says, let's say it's koicha that I push the button that makes the press squeeze out the grapes. He says, so, in which case koicha should be usher. However, if you look at the Shach, who's really coming from the Ramah there in Halacha Chafal, says, koicha only answers the part that was actually moved. The part that was not moved, the part that didn't get pushed to the other place, doesn't get usher. By touching, or when you make hamshacha, the whole thing becomes usher. But when you make it usher through koicha, you'll be in halacha chaval. When you make it usher through koicha, it only answers the part that left. The part that didn't move doesn't come usher. So in our case, the part that went out of the press, the part that pushed out, that would be stam yayin. We don't hear about that. The part that's left behind that didn't get moved by the press, that part is okay.
How do you normally do hamshacha? Isn't it? What the guy somebody sticks his hands in and he pushes them all like that to make it all usher.
So two things. First of all is you're probably not remembering that in halacha tes we had different ways that you could squeeze grapes out. And I'm going to tell you again. You're going to wait for my project to come, and you'll find out how you make hamshacha. Okay. So watch the
question.
Okay. What?
That's what every winery do. Everyone wants to know.
So what's the question negated to?
Every time it's koicha. We say hamshacha answers the whole thing.
The grapeseeds.
In those days, they didn't do hamshacha with hydraulic press.
What's hydraulic press? What is it?
So the Ramah says that if the guy does his hamshacha without touching it, then only stuff that leaves is usher, and the stuff that's left behind is not usher.
Every winery nowadays, the grapeseeds which are left in the original container should be water.
So give me a second. So he says the seeds in this case are going to be water because no one touched them. Okay.
Not unique to hydraulic press.
So far, it's not unique to the hydraulic press, right? So far. Next, he says, okay, so the seeds are water. He says, okay, so the seeds didn't come usher through koicha. He says, but there's another thing. As soon as they open up the press, now we got to take the seeds out. Okay, so now when they open up the press, now the guy's going to touch the seeds to get them out. So very nice that the guy didn't push the juice out of it, but that's fine. So that second didn't come usher yet. Okay, so a minute later it's going to become usher. As soon as you open up the press, number two, he opens up the press, now he scoops out all the seeds. Now it becomes usher. He's touching them. So he says, well, if you look at the din by the din of hamshacha, it says that it talks about how the seeds become usher. He says, if the din is, it has to be that the seeds are still wet. It has to be tafeh hamnas, not even just wet. Tafeh hamnas tafeh, wet enough to make something else wet. Okay, so they're only usher in that case. He says, so in a normal place, when you crush grapes, what's left when the seeds come out, the seeds are still moisture on them. They're not perfect bone dry. He says, but in my case, the press that we're using, they come out bone dry. He says, there's not a drop of liquid on them. He says, I put a napkin on them. I put a napkin on them. They were completely dry. So even though touching the seeds would make them usher, but touching the seeds only make them usher if there's some moisture on the seeds. Yes.
If I understand correctly, that dry press is squeezing everything, and the liquid is somehow, emerging from it. That means that dry press is pushing down the seeds.
Yes.
So it is moving the seeds.
So that's without him touching it. So you mean, did it make it move them from here to here? Okay, so that's a good question. That's a fair question. But that's what Rama said that was mutter. Rama was also the guy was pressing grapes by something tucked in between them, and the part that so they left behind over here. The Hamshacha is like when they separate, and the fact that they moved from here to here wasn't enough to do. I'm not sure. It's a fair question. I thought about it, but the Rama says it. That's it. Now, so he says, okay, so that's why the hydraulic press is important over here, because it makes them, he said they come out dry. There's not a drop of liquid. The last thing is, okay, so when we press the grapes, the seeds didn't come usher. When we scooped out the grapes, they didn't come usher. He says, wait a second. But then we take the grapes. What do we do with them? How do we get out the grapeseed extract? We take these seeds and we put them into water or some other solvent. I think it's water. They put it into water and they draw out the extract that we're trying to get out of this thing. Okay, well then we're making temed. That was a dinner before that. If you make temed out of things, then it's also. So let's say it's not usher when you press it, and let's say it's not usher when you scooped it out. But let it be usher when you make the finished product. So that he says, if you look back there on halacha, I don't know if it was Tes or Yud, it said there, if you might remember, there were 3 types of temed, 3 levels of how they were made, and one of them was, the one that's the most kal is netzru b'gagal. They were made by, the wine was made by squeezing it mechanically, not hydraulically, but b'gagal, you use a more serious way to press it out, meaning a lot of juice got out of it, and the thing over there was, the temed that you make from those seeds, that temed is only usher if, for every 3 ounces of water that you put in, you get out 4 ounces of temed comes out of there. So he's making an assumption, which is probably correct, that for every 3 ounces of liquid you put in, you get out 3 ounces. You don't get 4 ounces. And therefore, the Machaber said there, it's only usher as temed if, in this kind of a case, if you put in 3 ounces, you get out 4 ounces. If you put in 3 and get out 3, it's not usher. He says, so it's not temed also. Okay? So that's a fair argument. I just mentioned is, at that time, you may remember I said, Shechta said, that din that you have to put in 3 and get out 4 is only if you're going to use the temed at single strength. But if you can go ahead and concentrate the temed down to just the wine element of it, he says, then it doesn't make sense. He says, it only makes sense because the little bit of wine that's in there is diluted in the water. He says, that's fine if it's diluted in the water, but if I then get rid of all the water and just get the ikar of the wine, then it's not going to work. And of course, that's what happened here. It happened here with the grapeseed extract. They remove the extract through water. Let's say they threw water out of the seeds, and then they get rid of the water. You don't drink 10 gallons of this stuff. You boil out the water and leave just the ikar, just the grapeseed extract. So according to what Shachta said, which makes sense, then you're not going to the din of you're not going to get away by saying I only put in 3 and got out 3, and it's only us if I put in 3 get out 4, because in this case, since it's concentrated afterwards, we don't get that cool to say that. Okay, so now, so that's what he said. And I mentioned this question, and we'll see what I haven't heard back from him yet.
I mentioned which question?
This last question I just said for Shachta. I mentioned this for Pavel. We'll see what he said. A part that we're not going to talk about is I mentioned the grapeseed extract and the color and the eno are all have the same shiloh to them, but the eno and the grape color extract have an extra shiloh. We're not talking about, which is okay. It's treif. I'm assuming it's treif, and that we're used in something. When can it be buffalo? When do we say chazuz and milsa for those things? That's we're not going to talk about today. That's not our dinner. Okay. If you have patience, I'm going to quickly do grapeseed oil. Okay, even if you don't have patience, I'll tell you this. Okay. The other, whatever. I'm going to do it quickly. Okay. All these things we're talking about are these extracts that are made from the seed. Came along, however long ago some sort of lived, probably around the same time as that other person. This is a Grapeseed. And he said, and they had a shiloh of grapeseed oil. Okay, grapeseed oil is, it's an oil that's extracted from grape seeds. It's not these extracts that are taken out. It's an oil like you can cook with it. Right? So the shiloh was, is it mutter is enough? Made from treif grapes, from the grapes from the seeds from a treif wine production could you use? Is that you're allowed to use it oil or not? Okay, and nobody who talks about the shayla, lots of people do. Nobody who talks about the shayla can talk about that. Talk about the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer talked about it first, and he said it was mutter. He says two reasons why it's mutter. Two angles of why it's mutter. He says, I'm going to say that. Okay, one reason he says it's not wine. He says what's coming out of here is oil. He says 1 million people have tasted it, and it doesn't taste like wine. So this stuff is not wine. Okay. Now, that point that he said, that's the first one part of what he said. That part has to do with what Rishon Miller said. If you remember, I told you Rishon Miller said two reasons why the seed is usher. Either it's usher because the wine shaboy, the wine in the seed is usher, or the other reason was there's no wine in the seed, but once Chazal asked the whole pre itself with it. Okay, according to that other way I told you that they asked the whole pre, then this point of the Chassam Sofer is not going to work. Chassam Sofer says it's not wine. It doesn't taste like wine at all. Nothing to do with wine. And Rishon Miller says I don't care if it's wine. It's seed would be usher. Okay. But the other thing he said, which is the more famous part, is that Chassam Sofer says is that maybe you'll tell me, okay, it's not wine, but it comes from wine. He said that doesn't make a difference because it's nishtana. It was first wine, and then it turned into oil. Wine and oil have nothing to do with each other, so it was nishtana. It went from being wine into being oil, so it's mutter. It was nishtana, and so the that's why I said it's mutter. And that's the end. That's the shul ends, and he's off. It's mutter. So we spoke about nishtana. This you probably don't remember before Pesach of 2012 by Kitni Sheshan. We talked a little bit about Chassam Sofer and Lamaisa in Halach Lamaisa. The Hashkachas we actually Rabbi Nia has banged into them this week. That are actually making grapeseed oil as kosher based on the Chassam Sofer. Okay, we banged into it. However, it came up through someone who applied to us, and around that we came about trying to find someone kosher grapeseeds, and we banged into this people who are making under a reputable hashgacha. No, okay. The people who sell Pesach, I don't know what they do. I don't know exactly what they do today. They might be doing it from kosher grapeseeds. You don't have a way of knowing whether that is or is not. Okay, that's potentially why that should be done like that. But these people were making it not in a special production run for Pesach and things like that. It was just a generic company that was making it, and they were making it based on the Chassam Sofer. I'm sure they have a reputable hesher, but they weren't doing it from kosher grape. They for sure were not doing it from kosher grapeseed. Your person who you bought it for a Pesach may very well be doing it from kosher grapes. You know, a lot of is even some of the Chassam Sofer. Okay, so I'm going to tell you quickly 6 questions that people ask on the Chassam Sofer. Okay, 6 reasons to think that Chassam Sofer might not be right. Again, I'm telling you that Lamaisa, as far as I know, people are saying on that.
Why wouldn't that be meant to the extract also?
So that was question number. I don't remember which one. But why would that be meant to extract also? So okay, that's not one of the questions. The difference is the extract is saying I'm getting wine out of this thing. I'm taking something out that. Remember, why did they take out extract? It belongs in red wine.
If we isolate that extract, does it look like wine? It tastes like wine?
So I don't know if it looks or tastes like wine, but the point is that they're trying to get something that belongs in wine. It's connected to wine. It's a wine type thing. It's a grape color. It's a color that belongs in the wine.
The oil is also an extract.
You know, the oil is an extract, but the oil is a completely different thing than the wine.
So you have to crush the whole seed to get the oil out. As opposed to an extract, you just soak it there and it leaches out. You can't leach out the oil. You got to smush it to get the oil out.
Okay. So I think most people didn't look at it that way. They saw the oil. The oil is a non-wine type thing, and the extract is it's a wine. That's what it's supposed to be. Remember, think of what's going on. It's supposed to be in red wine. If I'm the red wine, I'm going to get out of the seeds from the white wine. So they're looking at it as it is wine as opposed to that stuff. Okay. So here it is. First is it's a machlekes in Orach Chaim by Musk whether nishtan is mutter or asher. So why is Chassam Sofer assuming that this is mutter? Okay, I'll tell you a question with a brief version of the answer. Okay, the over there the Prim Gadim in Orach Chaim it's in this halachas of Berachas Hareach. The Prim Gadim says that this is a machlekes rishonim and you should be machmer for the rices and maker for the rabbanim. And so this is a din rabbanon. Maybe that's what Chassam Sofer is being made. It's a din rabbanon. Stam yain telling us with rabbanon. Okay. Next is the Chassam Sofer himself in other tshuvas says you should be machmer about nishtana. Okay. So then there's a whole to-do people are arguing as to which of the tshuvas of Chassam Sofer is the real tshuva that he really meant it. Okay. In other tshuvas about other things he says you should be machmer for nishtana. Okay. They think it's the real tshuva. Okay. A strong argument people make is this that nishtana is mutter only makes sense by Yisuri Achila. But if you have something that's Yisuri Hana, then how can Nishtana be mutter? You're having enough on the thing. If I take something that's usher and I turn it to something else, then I had hana from that thing. So if something's isuri hana, then the Nishtana is not going to help you. Okay? So then there's one argument against that is the Magen Avraham says it even by isuri hana, maybe. By Hilchos Pesach, maybe he says by isuri hana. And the other is, we're Ashkenazim are sort of bakel that Stamiyah is not usher b'hana. So maybe Sfardim can't eat it, but maybe Ashkenazim can eat it. Okay. Another is, this is a two-sided argument. One side is, the oil is not nishtana. It's not nishtana. They didn't do anything different. They just squeeze it out. They just squeeze it out. So therefore, if they squeeze it out, then it's not nishtana. And the argument against that was, punk fakir. What I said to you before. It wasn't nishtana. You're right, it wasn't nishtana. It wasn't wine either. It's a completely different thing. Okay. There's the whole to do about whether you should say chanan. You say chanan. Once it became usher, the seed is usher, and everything comes out of his usher. Okay. And last is, I think Pesach talks about this, is if nishtana is mutter, if nishtana is a reason to be mekel, then why doesn't brandy mutter also? Okay, it's also nishtana. It goes from wine to this magical new product that's, so from purple to clear, and then from wine to whiskey. Why isn't that nishtana also? Okay, so we don't hear that so much. Why don't we hear that? Why don't we hear that? Because to us, brandy is just concentrated wine, as opposed to this thing is not wine b'chlal. Okay, this is not wine. This is wine, and this is oil. We have no shaykhs, and this is wine. This is concentrated wine. To us, we don't hear so much that question of why isn't that nishtana. To us, that's not nishtana. It's just concentrated. And then there are also things that I spoke about in 2012, but by Pesach time there, of details within nishtana that might not apply to us.